next session. Our next and final paper is Coping Strategies for Individuals During COVID-19 Crisis, that is mental health, self-motivation strategies. This will be presented by Dr. Susan Muriungi, and the paper chair is Mr. Ashok Shah. Mr. Ashok, from what I got to gather, is Mr. Ashok's education is in applied chemistry. Professionally, he is a chartered insurer with ACII. He is a member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and an associate of the Insurance Institute of Kenya. He is a past chairman of Association of Kenya Insurers, that is, and currently the group chief executive of Apollo Investments Limited. He is a director of CDSC, representing the Capital Market Challenge Fund. Other directorships include APA Insurance, Barclays Bank of Kenya, APA Life Assurance, Apollo Asset Management, APA Insurance Uganda, and Reliance Insurance Company Limited in Tanzania. He is a seasoned executive with over 30 years of progressive experience within the insurance industry, both in East Africa and England, a solid reputation for achieving corporate growth objectives through providing strategic direction, diverse perspective, and positive leadership. Known within the industry for driving business results and maximizing profitability through the delivery of innovative products, quality and service, and prudent management of people, technology, and processes. Proven ability to manage budgets, align technology strategy with corporate strategy, set business and group goals, and lead large management teams to achieve project goals and exceed client expectation. He has steered the APA Apollo Group to great heights and has led key innovations in the Kenya insurance market. APA was the first insurance company in Kenya to offer a health insurance that covered HIV-related illnesses in 2001, which was adopted 7 years later by their competitors. This same trailblazing spirit has seen APA lead a consortium of Kenyan insurers to partner with the public sector in offering smallholder index-based livestock and agriculture covers in marginalized areas of the country. Ashok is a tireless philanthropist whose activities through the APA Apollo Foundation focuses mainly on the environment, youth empowerment, and education. Through building sand dams, the foundation provides community with a clean, local, reliable source of water, even during periods of drought. He was the first recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution to the Kenya insurance industry and a finalist for both the 2015 and 2016 AABLA Philanthropist of the Year Award and 2016 Entrepreneur of the Year Award. From what I've seen, this is a kind person, both in abilities, in thoughts, in skills, and of course, in his ability to change the world from the best way he can. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ashok Shah for the paper chairing as he welcomes the speaker of the day. Mr. Ashok, this is your chance.
Thank you, MC Okari. Thank you for all those very kind words and the introduction to myself. In fact, in insurance, I would say I'm perhaps coming to myself by date because it's more than 40 years that I've been in insurance. We're coming soon to around about 50. So it's a great pleasure to be here today at this Insurance Institute conference. Very different conference, very different circumstances. And basically, I think we're lucky that because of the virtual conference, many more people can join us from outside Nairobi and can listen to all the dispensation that's going on. It was very interesting to listen to the last paper by Lucy and is talking about customer experience. It is important. I think insurance is something that is a service, so customer experience is very, very important. And what happens is that the mental health of our people is also very, very important. Ourselves and our people is very important because it is that really, if they do not have a good mental health, they don't have good thinking at the time, then they will not be able to serve that customer. But more than that, when you are affected badly by mental health, what happens is that you cannot you are not yourself, you cannot be productive, you cannot be supportive to yourselves and your family. And that is something that is very, very important for us. And what has happened in 2020 really is there a year called 2020? I don't think so. What it is that it was the start of a decade. The decade basically we started off 2020 in big spirits, thinking that the next 10 years of our lives are going to be very different. And what happens next is that really we closed down. In February and March, we started closing down completely. Economies closed down, the countries closed down, and even while we were not closed, we didn't have lockdown like other countries in other parts of the world. We actually did close down. Companies decided to send people home to work. Fortunately for some people, what happened was they went home with full salaries, but there were so many others who had to take pay cuts, others lost their jobs, and really it created a lot of problems for all of us. The what happened is that people normally suffer from mental health because of stress for other reasons. But this year, the changed. The stress levels changed because what happened is that you there was a fear that was driven amongst us, the fear of COVID, catching COVID, and what happened was that that fear really led a lot of us into depression and other mental conditions that we could not describe. Worse than that, what happened was schools were closed. So if you were a parent, if you had a child at home and you were working, then what was the child? You were worried about what was happening to the child. Who is looking after the child? What is what is the child doing? And is the child safe? So those sort of things also started worrying us. And was so and as you were, if you were staying at home, if you're working from home, then you had to look after your work, you had to look after the family. So there were lots of things that you had to virtually worry about all the time. So the mental conditions, the stress levels continued increasing. And for some of us who actually were working, coming to work was also a stress, because how do you travel? If you're traveling in a matatu or public transport, are you safe? So all those issues really made life very, very difficult for most of the people who are working until March, and then all of a sudden the lifestyle changed. Then the other areas that you had to worry about was things like the curfews and where you could go and how you would be able to live your life. So those were the issues that came out in many different ways. So if and then how do you really look after your health? How do you manage that? If you did, there's a lot of times when you are in a surrounding with good colleagues and so on, your stress levels and mental health can be controlled by talking to others, talking amongst yourself, communicating, and making sure that you can be supportive, you can be supported. But when it came to, well, as soon as there was a lockdown, your support level, support structure also went down quite a lot. So with that, what we need is we need professionals who can guide us. And today we are really happy to have Dr. Susan Muriungi. Dr. Susan Muriungi is a clinical psychologist, and she specializes in helping people to get rid of the stresses of life, making sure that their mental health is tip top. And just to talk about Susan, let me say she is a MSc in clinical psychology. She did her initial training, clinical psychology at University of Nairobi, where she continued in her master's. And then she is currently the chair and head of department of counseling and psychology at Daystar University. Um, her professional work has focused on mental health issues in adolescents, adults, institutions, and organization psychology. She has been deeply involved in mental health issues within East Africa and has written many books and papers as well as consulting on regular basis with numerous universities and companies in the regions. So I would like to welcome Susan to talk to us, give us ideas of how to cope with COVID. It's, 6 months have gone with COVID. We are all now still trying to grapple with it. The second wave is here. So Susan, would you be kind enough to tell us a little bit more and help us manage our mental and stress levels?
Thank you very much, Ashok. I'm very, very excited.
Can I ask
Quite
some people?
excited to be amongst the insurance. My husband is an insurer. Many of you know him, Moses Muriungi, and I followed closely what the previous speaker has said. I will try as much as possible to be quite, did I say elementary or use a layman's language in passing across what I have for today in relation to this national conference, Resilience and Thriving Amidst COVID. And specifically for me, I'll be looking at how to cope or coping strategies amidst psychological issues in the current global pandemic. When an individual is employed anywhere, they are employed as a person, but they bring with them the entire village, the entire family, because if anything is happening that's unusual within the family, those things are going to be projected and within the workplace, and the work or productivity is going to be affected. So COVID is not only happening in Kenya, it's happening all over the world, as we all know, and it has affected each individual in different thresholds. And this is not just the beginning, or this is not the first time that we have a pandemic in the world. Please charge my. This is not the first time pandemics are happening in the world, but this one, we are like involved in it, and all of us, if not affected, we say, like we used to say in HIV and AIDS, if you're not infected, you are affected in one way or another. COVID, or this pandemic, has elicited what we are commonly calling a new norm. And if we want it or not, we must adjust and cope, and just adapt and cope. And holistically, not just psychologically or socially, but even economically, financially, spiritually, what we call in mental health, biopsycho, spiritually, and now / economically. And if we don't cope, like Charles Darwin, one of the early psychologists, said, we will be eradicated, and you can be alive. You can be alive and yet not functioning properly. You can be alive and yet not effective and efficient. Battery is running low. It's not charging.
Susan, you are muted. Hi, Susan. Okay. I think she's trying
Sorry
to.
about that.
Okay. You want to share the screen? let me see.
Okay, so we have to learn how to cope, and before we even cope, we have to be able to recognize what is happening to us as individuals, what is happening to us as to our children, in case we have any, what is happening to our spouses, in case we have any. Otherwise, it's going to be a terrible confusion within the home front, and we are going to carry it in our workplaces. The pandemic, as Ashok said, has brought a lot of restrictions, the don'ts and the do's, restrictions on movement, on behavior, interactions, transactions, cultural practices, even barrier, which we Africans revere. There has been restrictions have been put and weight, and this has brought a lot of worries, a lot of fears, a lot of things have been invoked which are not ordinarily normal within our minds, and this has brought us to behave in certain ways that we are going to look at later. Let me say that it's not only adults that have been affected, children have been affected, the house helps we have in our homes have been affected, our workmates have been affected, each one of us, even the unborn children have been affected. And because of that, there has been a lot of apprehensions and uncertainties in all the sectors. Name it, may it be the economic sector, the education sector, the health sector, and all that. All those things have been affected. Let's look at generally the general aftermath of the pandemic, which has led to several anomalies. And the first one, there has been increased indiscipline among our children. Before the pandemic, children, the school-going children, or those that are not school-going and they are at home, they were having a specific or a specified schedule that they were following. But now that has been disrupted because they are at home. And even those who recently have gone to school, it's not the normal way. They are not following the normal schedules that they know. So this has brought irritation within the children themselves, because it's like their normalcy, their normal activities, the carpet beneath them has been pulled off. And this has brought a lot of indiscipline among them, particularly the children and the adolescents. There have been social problems among families because of whatever we are going to look at later that's happening to us individually. Each person has their own unusual thoughts because of the unusual occurrence. And when they take them at all or bring them to the office, this is affecting everybody, the way we talk, the way we relate, the way we communicate, the way we handle things has been changed. And looking at the children themselves, because again of the social problems within the family members, maybe the parents, because they are engrossed. Even if you are working at home, you are engrossed in your own things that's happening within you. You are not following up on what is happening in the children, and the children, some of them have been left unattended, leading to early pregnancies, early murders, rapes, addictions, strained relationships between the children and the parents, violence, addictions, and poverty. Just the other day, I was talking to a number of children within an upmarket estate who are playing together, thinking that now, because they are within the upmarket and it's an enclosed environment, they are okay. But you find that the telephones that we give them, they are engrossed in watching pornography. And you can imagine what that can lead into. It's the children hiding in corners and practicing whatever it is that they are seeing in the phones. There has also been rise in psychological disorders like stress, as Ashok mentioned. Specifically anxiety, trauma, depression, suicidality, panic attacks, phobias, addictions, all these things have been, we are finding in our clinics, in hospitals, them being heightened because of the changes and the happenings brought about by the pandemic. We'll find that not all of us are mentally okay for those who had minimum symptomatology in other mental disorders, we find that this pandemic has brought their heightening. For example, antisocial disorders among children and adolescents, what we call kleptomania. Kleptomania is stealing, where children just, because of their idol, they are trying to see what can occupy them. They want to do this, to do the other, and they start stealing left, right, and center, of course, from the house among children, antisocial disorders, and many other heightened adult disorders like schizophrenia and many other. I don't want to mention them, but you find that they have become heightened. There has also been economic and financial problems due to individuals losing their jobs, you know, salary cuts, and businesses have gone down, name it. And this has affected not only individuals, but families, communities, and even governments because of the pay as you earn cuts that have come because of reduced, everybody is affected, every sector is affected in one way or another. Now, let's look at the general impact of the pandemic among people. One, there has been violation of individual, family, and societal norms that has brought, has left people, you know, hurt, disillusioned, anxious, and stress level. You can imagine, like, if a family members, say a mother and a father get COVID, and one of them dies, the other could be in hospital and not even able to attend burial. That is quite abnormal, and it's quite unhealing to their thoughts. So violation of individual and family and societal norms. Individually, we have our own norms that we do, that we have, what we do, how we do it, but this, because of the do's and don'ts, has been affected. And this has brought about fear and apprehension, fear of the known and unknown. What if, you know, I get this, like just a few months ago, about 3 months ago, my daughter got COVID, you know, brought about by the husband, who is a medical doctor, and we interact quite a lot. And I was wondering now what will happen, what has happened to the children, what has happened to me. You know, we are all to go for checks, and, you know, by God's grace, it's only the two of them. So I grabbed the house help and the children into my house. We were all not affected. We were not affected, you know, my husband and myself. And, you know, that meant increased finances, keeping our whole family in my household for 2 weeks. And then for me running to and fro to find out if they are okay in their house, taking food and leaving it at the door, it was quite uneven. And this can really elicit a lot of things. You can imagine, because of the stigma that follows COVID, maybe if you have it, or if you fear that if you have it, maybe you will not find any help because of the do's and don'ts of interactions. Now, loss of many things, as I recited, many problems among people, individuals. For example, loss of freedom to associate, disruption of one's routine, loss of finances, loss of status in case you have lost a job or you have lost a loved one, loss of friends, because you may find that because of restrictions in interactions, you are not interacting with your friends as much as you used to. It goes to telephones, you know, conversing in telephones or mitandaos, and you find that you are, you know, shutting out quite a number of them. Livelihood, loss of livelihood, loss of loved ones, or loss of friends, and all these things, you know, affect us, because loss brings about with it several things. For example, what we call the process of grief and loss, because when you lose something, whatever it is, depending on what importance you attached into it, you might find that it's leading you even to depression. But you find that at first you may get shocked, you get, you know, become or have disbelief. You don't believe that you have lost whatever it is of value that you have lost. You start getting angry, and this anger can be internalized or externalized. You start bargaining, and if you don't accept whatever it is that has happened, what you are saying, become resilient and learn how to cope, then you can enter into depression, and depression is a killer disease, as quiet as it is. So we also have the impact of lack of social support, lack of acceptance because of stigma in case somebody gets this disease. Just the other day, I was talking to a close friend of mine who had a thriving business because she got COVID. She cannot talk about it because if she thinks if she tells people, then her business is, people are going to run away from her business, you know, so, and this can lead to lack. So lack is another problem that is individualized, and it can also go to spread into the entire family, community, and even workplace. Challenges in adopting to what? Adopting to loss, adopting to lack. We are not able sometimes to do that. And we have to adopt new ways of for example, time use. If those of us who are working at home, or you have lost your job now, you don't know how to occupy yourself, and there is nothing as bad as an idle mind if you don't have occupying things to do that can occupy you. Choose challenges in adopting to new ways of time use, entertainment, association, and so on and so forth. It can cause a lot of upheavals. Now, escalation of symptoms of other underlying and unresolved psychological disorders, as I said, maybe you had a very low depression, a condition like depression, for example, but it had low threshold. But because of COVID and all the other changes that are happening within you, you find that it is heightening. The severity is becoming higher and higher, and your functionability gets affected in one way or another. Now, then how has this impact, or how has this affected one intrapersonally? Because we always begin ourselves. All these changes that I have talked about, how have they affected us intrapersonally? Number one that is very interesting is irritability. Irritability. People have become so irritable. Small little things, they react instead of acting, and the reaction can be seen at home. When it began initially, there used to be a lot of, because of irritability, a lot of, cold and wars within the family sector, because if somebody reacts to something that you have said in a very irritated or aggressive manner, because irritability leads to aggression. Aggression, either verbally or unverbally. It has led to fights, fights among the children, fights between the children and the parents, fights between the parents, even at work sometimes, because of irritability. Irritability to oneself or to others due to change of routine and other related new norms that one has to adopt to, including financial challenges. Very, very, very confusing. Now, as I say, irritability can bring about anger issues. And anger, when an individual experiences anger, there are those who are introverts and they can internalize that anger, and it can be very, very, very destructive when you internalize anger, because the negative chemicals that you are producing when you are angry, the adrenaline, it goes to increase other negative chemicals within you, and you start, for example, having heightened hydrochloric acid in your gut, and you start developing peptic ulcers. It can get into your head, and you start having headaches, because when you are angry, if you remember, those of you who listen to me, when I was explaining what anger does to you, is that within that a second of your intense anger, your blood becomes acidic 150%, and that one can bring a lot of other compounding negative biological or physical reactions onto your body. Now, when anger becomes overted or it's exhibited, you know, outwardly, it can bring about, you know, verbal or non-verbal aggressiveness towards others, towards your children, towards your spouse, towards your colleagues, and that is going to bring an atmosphere that is not conducive to work, that is not conducive to stay. And it can even bring about other conditions we talked about of trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, you know, among the children. It can lead into defined mental health disorders called acute stress disorder, or even PT, post-traumatic stress disorder, or being elicited by reactions as due to anger issues. Now, fear is another intrapersonal consequence or aftermath of this condition. Fear of the known, fear of the unknown, and there is nothing as disabling as fear, because when you're gripped with fear, it affects your thinking, it affects your cognitive reasoning, and you start doing things in a very awkward manner. Even that customer care we talked about, we will see that spills now into your customers, and you stop behaving normally. You start, even towards your children, towards your spouse, towards your colleagues at work. Fear also brings about suspiciousness. Like now with this second surge, the first when it occurred in Kenya, we were all very careful. We were suspicious of where our adult children were going, if we were living with them and coming back, and you could hear people talking like, wewe utaniletea corona, you know, you're going to bring corona to me, because you are not dictating even where you're going, because of suspiciousness. But now in the second surge, we have pulled down our guard, and we are thinking more about what others are doing because of our suspiciousness instead of how we ourselves are doing. And this can bring a lot of disharmony within the family, intrapersonally, and even spill over interpersonally. Frustration, because this is beyond what we expected. It is beyond, you know, what it is that we are losing. We have lost control of the matter, not to protect ourselves, but COVID is there, and we are being told it is there to stay for a long time. We don't know when it is going to. And we get frustrated that our children are still at home and not going, frustrated that my spouse, or if you have a spouse, or my friend is not contacting me, or is not asking me. Frustration, just frustration, gripped by frustration. And when you are frustrated internally as a human being, you start making awkward demands or expecting awkward demands that cannot be met by anybody, and you get into a place of helplessness, you get into a place of hopelessness, and gradually depression starts getting in. Negative thoughts to oneself start coming in because of frustration. You are not able to, you are not in control of things, and the negative thoughts start gripping you, and you start gradually getting anxiety, and it can get even comorbid with depression. And we know depression, as I said earlier, can be very disabling. Now, too much scrutiny of who? Not of self. Excuse me. Not scrutiny of self, but scrutiny of others. What, excuse me, what it is that they are doing. Give me hot water. What it is that they are doing because of fear. What it is they are doing, what it is that they are not doing. When they go out and, you know, for example, they are working from home, you wonder what it is that they are going to bring to you. May it be the children, may it be spouse, may it be whatever. Even those of us who are working in the office, you know, even if it is not the usual manner, scrutiny of, you have not worn your mask, or you have pulled your mask down, and it can be very, very irritating and bring a lot. And all these things are not happening individually. They are compounded into one person, and an individual can be very, 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 very volatile. Again, because of all these things, inability to accomplish prior set goals due to uncertainty. You don't know if you are going to be working tomorrow. You don't know if you're in business, how your business is going to be tomorrow. And because of these uncertainties, there is the plans, the objective plans that you had initially, you find them crumbling before your very eyes. And remember, you may not be sharing this with anybody. You are just internalizing it yourself, and it can be very, very disabling. Now, when that happens, you start becoming sleepless, or what we call suffering insomnia. Your sleep goes to the dogs, and when you're not sleeping enough, 8 hours in a day, because of too much thought, too much thinking, too much scrutiny, too much fear, too much anxiety, too much of everything that wasn't there, then you are welcoming other physical abnormalities into you, because you are not allowing your body to eliminate the cortisols that you produce during the day. You continue manufacturing cortisol. Cortisol is a chemical that your brain produces because of stress, and it really lowers your immune system, and you start succumbing to other illnesses here and there. Your BP may go up in case you are not having enough sleep, and your entire health starts crumbling slowly but surely. Reduction of self-worth and your self-image starts crumbling again because of all this. And remember, I'm saying this is intra. They are happening to you as an individual. And if you're not sharing them out with anybody, your concerns and cares, they can really, really destroy you. And you start developing a negative attitude. And the negative attitude is simply enthusiasm of everything wrong happening, everything you fail to have a anticipation of anything positive, but you are always having anticipation of everything negative. And even your ability to start going down, 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 down. You start losing focus and objectivity within yourself, and that spills out even to other, and the corresponding poor mental health and physical health and causes you to stop being productive the way you have to. Now, let's look at the common mental health disorders which have been associated with COVID. Stress is one of them, acute or chronic stress. You may have had stress before, but because of COVID and all these issues that is bringing with it, the challenges that we have talked about, it may now start becoming increased, and your fear continues increasing, your tension, your irritability level, poor concentration, and so on and so forth. Now, stress again brings about what we call Apanapale syndrome. Apanapale syndrome simply means you start having pains and aches that are not explained because of the increased adrenaline level and increased cortisol levels within your blood system. Lower the libido, libido desire, sexual desire goes down. And of course, this, if you're married, if you are a married person, this is going to affect your marriage seriously. So stress is a terrible, terrible, terrible condition that we find ourselves in. Now, anxiety is another one that can creep in. Anxiety leading to feeling of apprehension and autonomic hyperarousal. What simply this means is that your breathing rate goes up, your heart rate goes up, you have extreme fear, extreme internal or external anger, and all these things are happening in your mind, and you may not even be in touch of what it is, what is causing it. And because of all those feelings that are happening within you, you start exhibiting neurotic symptoms. Neurotic symptoms or abnormal symptoms exaggerated due to use of defense mechanisms. You want to, to project. Sometimes because of what you're feeling, you are projecting whatever it is that you are feeling towards others, including cats and dogs around you. It becomes terrible, 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 a terrible state you are in. Another condition is panic attacks. Panic attacks are simply because of the underlying fear of the unknown. You can elicit a panic attack where suddenly out of the blues, your heart starts beating exceedingly high. It can even the heart rate can even go to 150 beats per minute. And you may start thinking that you're having a heart attack. Let me say panic attacks can't kill you, but it creates a very fearful environment within you. Phobia is simply fear persistent of fear of inappropriate fear that elicites again anxiety symptoms. These have been found to increase in the general population. Post-traumatic stress disorder, maybe because of whatever happenings that are happening, maybe the irritability and anger of the people who are around you, they emotionally traumatize you. And after 1 month, you may start relieving those feelings that you felt initially when you are traumatized. Depression is a mood disorder where you become withdrawn, you become irritable, you become aggressive. You simply want to be left alone. The way you take care of yourself goes down. You don't care what is happening within you, and you become quite dysfunctional. Addictions to substances, things, or even activities are also on the increase because of this, and this cuts across children and adults. The next thing is impact of intrapersonal relationship on the family. We have looked at what happens intrapersonally. And now interpersonally, let's look at the intrapersonal relationship on the family. Poor communication within the family, either whoever you call family, between parents and children, neighbors and others. Poor social support among family members because everybody is affected financially. So if one has got a problem, nobody is there to support the other. Verbal or emotional or physical abuse among family members because again of the degree of anger and irritability. This can bring about, uncalled for reactions among family members, and it can even go to workplace. Negative impact on the children and adolescents, and even young adults, depending on how we are relating with them. Disintegration of the family unit and cohesiveness. We say everybody for themselves and God for us. So if we are not careful, it can lead to that. And because of the caregivers or the parents or guardians being preoccupied with their own issues, the children may be left unattended to, and they may fall prey of abuse. They may fall prey of other things that can lead them into very, very, very serious emotional and physical problems. Increase of teenage motherhood and fatherhood, that has been reported in quite a number of communities. Increase of crime, that has been also increased. Worsening of psychological health to all family members. But one good thing we should know is that even if we are talking about children very much, children's resilience is very, very, very good, unlike adults' resilience. Once they get just minimal help, which I'm going to tell you how to do it, they can very, very, very easily adopt to whatever it is that's happening around them. So how can we prevent ourselves from falling into what we have talked about, or what coping strategies can we facilitate the children to employ? Number one, if you are a parent or a guardian or an adolescent, this is what you need to do. We need to sit with our children, with our adolescents, with our young adults and discuss the new coronavirus and its impacts with them in a honest, age-appropriate language. You can't put the small ones and the adolescent together and speak and think everybody is understanding what you are saying. It has to be age-appropriate. It is also important to ensure that you have to do a return demonstration, whether it is hand washing, whether it is mask wearing, whether what you mean by distance keeping or social distancing. Demonstrate it at home so that even when they are praying, unlike before, where we used to think small children cannot contract COVID and therefore they cannot transmit. That one is a lie. My son-in-law got it from a 3-month-old baby in hospital. So we need to do what we are calling a return demonstration to them. Explain the role of everyone of the importance of self-protection, how they can do that, how important it is for them to wear their masks properly, to keep distance, to keep washing hands every 15 minutes or sanitizing them. Maintain familiar routines as much as possible. Let us not as adults get preoccupied with ourselves, with our own, and settled in our own cocoons and leave the children, thinking that they are okay. They are not okay. If you look at how they are playing and how they are behaving, you can be able to tell that they are not okay, even as I'm going to tell you later. Give masks to do age-appropriate chores. Don't just leave them. If they're not in school, they wake up, they eat breakfast and they just go to play. Please give age-appropriate chores so that, because an idle mind is a devil's workshop. Outside, in addition to the academic responsibilities or chores that they are doing, let them do other fun activities. You can do it with them. Support your children with home learning and make sure time is set aside for safe play. They must play. They must play. Nowhere and with who they are with. Otherwise, assuming that because they are within your compound and they are playing with the children that you already know they are okay, that one is not true. They can be adventurous and do very awkward things, like what I told you about the pornography watching. 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and you see them demonstrating. Yes, you see them demonstrating it at home and you think they are playing, but they are not playing. They are doing what they saw outside there. Please be careful. For those who can write, those older children like adolescents, please let them draw, give them guided drawings to color, and out of the coloring, it can tell you a lot of things. Like if you have given them colors and all they are coloring their drawings with red only, that is danger. That, or purple, or color purple only, or black. That is something very, very happening in their minds, and you can read something is not right. If you watch them play and they are playing with violence, maybe removing or poking things, that can tell you maybe somebody is poking them somewhere, poking them sexually. You have to be very, 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 very alert. So let them draw, let them color, let them write composition in case they can write composition, guide them, read those composition, and you can tell the themes of what is happening in their lives. Study the word of God together. I am a Christian and practicing Christian, and therefore I'm saying this is very, very important. And you have a frequent heart-to-heart discussions, age-appropriate discussions within the family. Have discussions with the adult children as you touch base with them of what their cares are, what their fears are there, so that you can address them. Cultivate friendship with them. Please, that irritability we talked about, that anger you talked about, see if you can control it and touch base with the children, because you might lose them and lose them for good. Help children stay in contact with friends. Give them telephones to talk to their friends, or use any other means, or family members, whatever it is that and if they can be seeing, for example, WhatsApp, even if it is just 1 minute that they get in touch with their friends, it is going to be okay with them. Spend time doing offline activities together. For example, bake a cake, sing or dance. You can have a serious dancing competition within the family. Within the family, it doesn't have to have any rating. so that they feel happy. They just as gloom can be infectious, even happiness can be infectious. Try and ensure that your children do not spend significantly more time than usual on video games and TVs, because that stupefies them. It makes them foolish. It makes them stop thinking cognitively and intellectually. Engage them in healthy family play, like Monopoly, Kenya After 50, Scramble, Card, and so on and so forth. And pray and read the word of God with them. Now, impact of poor intrapersonal relationship at workplace, is it there? Yes, it is there. There becomes one of negative confusion and constant conflict between staff. And you can see, like this morning, I had a meeting. You know, Daystar University where I work is a Christian university, and you can see even in a virtual meeting, people are angry, whatever it is that they are saying, and they can pollute the air with their negativity and affect others. This ultimately ruins the work environment and climate, leading to negativity, and negativity will lead to sabotage among employees or reduction of productivity. Careless or intentional mistakes may start happening within the workplace, and constant accidents as well. This may lead to inability to achieve organizational objectives, and therefore the business just goes down, 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 down. They can also lead to groupings and lethargy among the employees, and where there is no unity, you can be sure that there won't be any much productivity, and organizational goals are not met in the long run. So this individual intrapersonal things will spread out not only to home, but to the community, but even to workplace. So how do you prevent, or what are the preventive measures among adults? Number one, keep in regular contact with loved ones. Who do you recognize as your loved ones? Are they far? Are they near you? Keep in contact with them. Find a way of keeping in contact with them. You can email, you can telephone, social media, video conferencing, and so on and so forth. Have time to laugh with them. Have time to joke with them, because sometimes we become too serious and too seriously serious that we forget how to laugh. Do daily physical exercises. This is a must, and you are advised to do it in the morning section, not in the evening, because if you exercise in the evening, you stimulate your body and sleep is going to become difficult. So as much as possible, exercise every day. Walk. Find a rhythm of how you can exercise in the morning, even when in quarantine. In case you are sick and you are quarantined, find ways of doing something to stimulate your circulatory system. Find out how to get practical help in case it is needed. Don't wait until it happens and now you wonder, so who do I call? Where do I go? Please have a pre-planned plan in case anything happens. For example, which taxi can you call? Do you have enough food? In case you don't have, who can you call to bring you supplies, and so on and so forth. Make sure you spend prudently. This is not timed for major, depending on your financial portfolio. Major things, you can suspend things so that you spend as prudently as you can. We don't know how long this thing is going to remain with us. You have enough of your, ensure that you have enough of your regular medicines. Now, like curfew has been extended, we don't know after that days how it's going to be again. Ensure that you have simple little things, you know, Panadols, vitamin C, the little things that you may require. And in case you have a chronic illness, have enough supplies with you. Ask family members and friends or neighbors for social support in case you need it. Please don't die alone, thinking that you are the only one who has that problem. Today, one of my senior of our senior managers just called me from hospital and told me, man, I have the thing. I don't know what to do. You know, when something happens suddenly, you don't even know how to plan yourself. Who now gets the? Do you get tested? That do your colleagues, your family members get tested? And I had a 15 time talk with her, what we call fast aid counseling. Fast aid counseling, where you tell her, try this, do this, do this. Even if you are in hospital, it doesn't mean that it's the end of you. And sharing what is happening with you. Be informed, listen to advice and recommendation from your national and local health authorities. But however, make sure you don't overdo it. I am sure when this COVID came, most of us were always glued from 2:30 to listen to Kagwe. And by the end of the week, your head is so full, you are so traumatized, and you are wondering, is this the end of the world? Please make sure you regulate that, even if you are saying be informed, minimize news feeds. Have a routine that you do, even if you are working at home. It has scientifically been proven that virtual meetings, long virtual meetings, day in, day out, can affect your brain, and you start behaving in an awkward manner. So make sure you have breaks in between, and get up and go to bed at similar times every day. Please, 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 please do not confuse your rhythms and your routines in as far as sleep is concerned. Eat healthy meals at regular times and drink enough water, and enough water is 8 glasses every day minimum. Allocate time for working and time for resting, and resting is when you are asleep. Make time for doing things you enjoy while keeping individually and with your family.
Susan, I think
Maintain social contact. Please, for substances, specifically alcohol and substance of abuse, don't start drinking alcohol if you have not been drinking. And if you have been drinking because you are not going to work the way, I would say there isn't as much work as there used to be, please don't heighten. Otherwise, by the end of the COVID, you might meet that you have very serious addictions. Limit the you also use on your phone.
Susan?
Otherwise, there are people who have been addicted to their telephones and so on and so forth. Recognize any intense, unusual psychological feelings or thoughts and seek appropriate help. For example, like depression, what I was saying, you feel withdrawn, you feel you have no energy even to wake up and go to bed, you feel you are not interested in doing with things that you used to do, you find that you are too irritable and too angry. Please, please, please seek help. Seek help from a professional, because depression is one of the causes of suicide. Suicidality has got 3 components: suicidal thoughts, suicidal plans, and suicidal attempts. Make sure you don't reach them very, very heightened so that you take your own life. Please be willing to help others. Don't stigmatize others with too much talk. Be of assistance to other people, because it is more blessed to give than to receive. If somebody needs help, we are not saying you expose yourself. No, there is a lot that you can do for others, even while keeping your own distance. Support health workers. We are saying support health workers. When you take the advisory seriously, and you do not expose yourself even as much as we trust God to protect us, you are helping health workers. When you send positive messages even to any health worker, it is assisting them in one way or another, appreciating them. Please don't discriminate and don't stigmatize those may be having the disease. It could be in the neighborhood, it could be your colleagues. Now, how do we manage individual stress? I will say I draw a lot from the word of God. Do not be anxious.
Susan, can I just interrupt? Susan?
Because anxiety, once you cultivate anxiety, it does not help you at all. But you are told in prayer and supplication, With thanksgiving, make your request known to God. It is important, even as you do this, that you identify what it is that is stressing you and address the stressors as soon as possible. You don't suspend tackling any issue that is causing you stress. You must look at it head-on, approach it head-on, and find ways of tackling it before it becomes elephant. Please modify your attitude. Your attitude is going to determine whether or not you are going to come out as a winner to a very great extent. Have a positive attitude that you are going to cope, you are going to overcome, and indeed you shall cope and you will overcome. This positive attitude is towards yourself and towards other people, right from home to work. Develop a holistic, proactive manner to deal with whatever situation you have. Okay.
Susan?
Improve your self-image. Please improve your self-image by identifying those things that you have that are positive about you, your strengths, so that when the negatives come, you can challenge them with the positive. And drink a lot of water, we said. Ensure that you have you practice effective time management, where you schedule what it is that you're going to do on daily basis, and be assertive and do your decision making in a very, very proactive manner.
Susan, I hope you can hear me.
The rest of the things you're going to see in the presentation. Let me also talk about general concerns of planning. When we were told to go back to work before the surge has become too serious, several people were quite uncomfortable. For example, there were issues on consequences of stagnation in the loss, shock, denial, anger, bargaining, and acceptance stages of loss, fear of exposure to infection as we go to work, or reinfection, budgetary implication. Now we are working at home, now going back to whatever in our compromised financial status is also an issue. Anticipation of fatigue before you could regulate yourself, when to rest, when to work, how to work, the spin to work with. All those concerns and return from new normal to old routine, reminder of stored aspirations, even as you go to work. Like me, I was due for an interview for a promotion to an associate professor. Now it has been suspended for almost a year. You know, all those concerns are there, disintegration from family and children. But we don't have to really be there. What we can do concerning those concerns is that you have to identify if you have stagnated in any of the loss stages. And if you have, then you can seek help from a professional to help you negotiate there. How to deal with fear, identify what it is that you fear and confront your fears while you can, in a positive manner, in a positive attitude. About budgetary issues, you must make a budget, like all of us, identify how to be prudent and disciplined and stick to your budget so that you don't overspend. You become prudent in how you spend. About fatigue, once you exercise every single day, and particularly in the morning, fatigue is not going to find you, however hard you are. Once even if you're tired within the course of the day, when you go to sleep and you give your 8 hours of sleep, it's going to be okay with you. Now, let me look at a few tips on how to motivate self, because a lot of this coping depends on your attitude, the positive attitude that you have. Number one, cultivating positivity or adopting a positive attitude is simply changing the way you look at things. And changing the language, your language. Changing the way you look at things and your language, so that it becomes a positive. How do you do that, please ensure that you cultivate enthusiasm for forgiveness, enthusiasm for love, enthusiasm for forgiving those who have it, enthusiasm for identifying your strong points so that you fly with them, you run with them, identifying with the positive people, making other people smile or laugh, helping other people, because positivity ensures that you cultivate optimism. So you have to heighten your optimism. It doesn't matter how the situation looks. When you think positive and you verbalize positive things, I can tell you things are going to change. Listen to your internal dialogue and identify any negative thoughts and confront them with positivity, the positivity that you have cultivated. Interact with the positive people, people who are positive, people who you know will make you laugh, people who, even if things are serious as how, they will not tell you, hey, this one, we are all going to die. Says who? We won't. You want to interact with somebody who speaks life into you. So interact with positive people and interact with positive environments that are going to heighten your positivity as well. Volunteer to help and assist where possible. It will make you feel good. Choose to get pleasure out of the simple things in life, even if, you know, it is eating ugali with sukuma wiki. Thank God for it and eat it, you know, in an happy manner. Permit yourself to be loved and be willing to love others and accept others the way they are. And you're going to survive, like Charles Darwin said, survival for the fittest, and Dr. Susan Muriungi says, eradication for the unfit. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I'll say that you must develop resilience. We must cope. We must survive. Come rain, come sunshine. We have what it takes to survive through this. As we instill positivity in others, we are instilling positivity in ourselves. And with that, I'll say, God bless you. We are overcomers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
I will
Thank
request Ashok
you, Susan.
To say what he wants to say now.
Okay, Susan, I mean, that was a very enlightening talk. You talked lots of ideas you gave us. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. There are some people who would like some questions. But I think what I'd like to do is that there is one particular person who had asked a question right from the beginning. Um, this was Simon Gitonga. But what I would like to do is perhaps uh, if you would be kind enough to type an answer for him. Simon wants to know how can one provide support to a friend whose spouse has lost a job and her life has become and their life has become unbearable. My friend says he's no longer has peace at home. I think what you talked about, if we look at it, if if I may, would like to, what I'd like to say is that what you have talked about is a lot of things, and in the last 6 8 months, most of us have gone through some of this. The um, depression, anxiety, stress, irritability, anger, which are internalized, can cause health problems. Then there is fear, suspicions, frustrations, scrutiny because of all these issues. Then you talked about cortisol increases and loss of sleep and increasing blood pressure. The interesting thing you talked about was that syndrome, the Hapa Napale syndrome. I think it would be new for us, but something that we have to understand. But the most important, I think, was the thing that you talked about. How can you draw out your children? Because your children obviously, and in fact, what you mentioned is that because we don't interact with, we don't have young children and so on. So we don't realize it. But the things that they have phones, and you talked about very young children watching pornography and so on, or perhaps even getting into other phone related areas which are not good for them. Um, and then drawing them out by coloring and playing with them. One thing that we also require is to I think one of the things that we must remember is allowing communication and keeping in contact with our friends, our colleagues, family, and obviously friends. I think friends is very, very important. In this particular time of COVID, a lot of people could not meet who would have a regular meeting with their friends. So I think with that, perhaps what I could do is allow you to talk about just this issue that Simon brought it up about his friend. And with that, perhaps after that, we can end this session. And we will hope that we can send the presentations that you had prepared. The Institute will send it to all the people online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashok. Yeah, it's quite a handful. And the presentation is going to be forwarded to the participants. So if there is anybody with a question, I can quickly answer it. Any other person? I've already answered the one who was asking something.
Okay, you answered Simon Gitonga's question.
Yeah.
I think that's very good because obviously he wants to help a friend who is obviously the friend is having a problem because the spouse has lost a job. Uh, but anyway, so I think with that I'd hand over to uh, Okari to conclude this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please never forget to laugh. Never forget to laugh. You can even laugh at yourself. Laughter is medicine to the heart. Make sure you don't take things too seriously. We don't, as far as you're concerned. So let's laugh. Thank you.
Okay, I've started the session for the MC with the laughter. Wonderful. That was amazing. Thank you, Mr. Ashok Shah. You've been amazing. Sorry we were not able to get you much earlier, but I hope you've now been able to present everything that we have wanted to say earlier. Thank you.
I
Now,
think, yes, I basically took